Hi, how you doing? Don Action Jackson here. Today, we're going to get into what makes up a radio station and how that works actually with a radio station day, because we're going to create an entire radio station from the ground up, and you're going to be involved in a couple of aspects of that. You'll be maybe in one department and then also making a commercial. Everybody on the station is going to make a commercial to fill up the station with that, and then you're going to have another responsibility. And I'm going to go through all those responsibilities in every aspect of the radio station so that you understand what it takes to do this. So it's going to be a lot of fun this month, and we're going to create a station day that we actually execute on the air. So let's start with seeing what a radio station is all about, shall we? Got all the station terms. We'll go through each one of them. First of all, we got the call letters, which is the legal name and designation of the radio station. That's not confused with the nickname. The nickname is KISS 96.5 or 96.5 KISS FM, Z1079. That's the nickname. But the actual name, the legal name, the FCC name of the station is WENZ for Z1079, for WAKS for KISS 96.5. Those are the actual call letters. You'll only hear them once an hour when they have to legally identify the station, but we'll get to that later. The positioner of the station is the thing that goes along with the name that you use to describe what the station is and does in very short order. So if I'm on Magic 105.7, Cleveland's greatest hits, you'd say that right after that, because that's what they do. They're kind of a 70s, 80s base station from the time that all those artists did greatest hits albums. You don't see that as much these days, but it fits the format and the era. Your number one for hip hop and R&B is right next to Z1079 when they say it, every single time. So it burns into your head. You know what they do. Was it The Lake? 106.5 The Lake. We play everything. You know, even though they don't play everything, they want you to think they do. And so they say that all the time. Just a few examples of positioners go hand in hand with the actual name of the radio station. The person in charge of all that you hear on the air is the program director. He or she is involved with every single aspect of the radio station. Oops, I saw program director and I see program log. I confused the two. That's all right. We'll get to program director in a minute. Program log is all the elements that you see on a radio station. Let me show you an example of one right here that we did for a previous radio station called WOKE. And it'll pop up here in a second. It should. There it is. WOKE program log. And you'll see it's got the music, it's got where you're supposed to talk, it's got the commercials, it's got everything that runs throughout the day. It's like a running playlist these days because everything's on computer, and everything you need is there. And as you're using it on the air, you're deciding whether it's going to run next or if you're going to pause before it runs, all those things. But you'll get the full list of everything that is going to run on the air. And yes, you can add and subtract it, but that's how it starts with your program log, okay? The stop sets are the things you see here where the commercials run. So right here are where all the commercials and the promos and everything between the music parts are on a music station or on the talk segments elsewhere. But whenever you stop for something away from the usual programming, that's what a program log does. That's what a stop set does on the program log, I should say. The format clocks. Those are a little bit older school. That's this thing here, okay? You'll see that the circular thing where you've got the news here and the commercial break and the show segment, could be music there, a network break, a commercial break, all those things here. And those things, years ago before computers, they would have a clock in the studio with that big circular thing. And you would know where to play what song and have all the songs sectioned off in it. You'd play this category and then this category and then that category. And then the commercials would show up here. And that's how it would work on the clock. And you'd be staring at that the whole time. Now, because you have a program log, you don't really need that as much, although there are some things that come to you in program. Like if you're getting a syndicated show, it shows you on the little wheel where everything is going to pop up on that show. So sometimes they're used for certain things. Okay, now we get back to the program director. And as I said, that person is in charge of all aspects of the sound of the station outside of the commercial content. That's decided by the ad execs and the people that are giving you the commercials. But the music, the promos, the specialty programming, the air talent, the decision to do certain promotions on the air. All of that is decided by the program director. And he or she works with the sales department and the promotions department as well. But it's got to pass through him or her because it's got to go on their airwaves, and they're ultimately responsible for the ratings on the station based on how it sounds and how it's appealing to the audience. So they are the gatekeepers for all of that. Assistant program director works directly underneath that person. I did that for a very long time, as a matter of fact. And these days, it tends to be also the music director. That is the person who's responsible for scheduling all the music that goes on the air and looking after the music library and maintaining good relationships with record company representatives. If you're playing current-based music and you're changing music all the time, you're adding new things, then you deal with them. You know what's new and what's responsible. Bring it to the program director, and you both decide what's going to go on the air. The music director executes whatever you decide. So depending on the type of station that you're on is what the music director is going to be doing. And if you're the assistant program director, then you have the position to execute that as well. The music log, as I mentioned, is what the music director is responsible for, making sure that every single day the songs are scheduled in such a way so that it gives a good music flow. So if you're on a R&B hip hop station, you want to go back and forth from something that's rap to something that's R&B. If you are on a pop station, you want to even-handedly play a pop rock song next to a dance pop hit, or a hip hop song if you're playing some hip hop as well, and mixing up the flow of the radio station. Same thing with an oldie station. You don't want to play too many R&B songs back to back. You want to break up an Earth, Wind, and Fire song with a Billy Joel song, et cetera, et cetera. You are doing that all the time, creating a good flow for the station. And then when you're done with the music log, you send it over so it's on the program log for the next day or the next week if you're scheduling ahead. The news director is in charge of all of the elements of the news things on the radio station, the reporters, the sports, the weather, sometimes the traffic department as well, people that do the traffic reports. News director is responsible for all of that, any kind of news, public relations, and public service news programming on Sundays that run a lot of times. The traffic director is not the traffic person that actually, that has to do with the traffic updates that you would see or that you would hear on the air. The actual traffic director for the station is, directing the traffic of where the commercials are going to go. They schedule the commercials and the promos and everything that runs in those stop sets pretty much. And your job is to make sure that the commercials that are supposed to run within a certain time do, and also that they are separated from a conflicting client. You don't want to have two restaurants back to back. You don't want to have two, auto repair places back to back, those types of things. You don't want that kind of thing. You want to make sure that they're flowing as well, same as the music director, and then you send it to the program log. So the program log ends up with the commercials getting slotted where they're supposed to go. The music director sends his or hers, and the music gets slotted where it's supposed to go. So that's the how that job works. They're very similar. And what you would be doing as the traffic director would be filling out this traffic log here. Then and all of those will be able to just copy and paste it right into the program log. We have it set up like that. The promotions director is responsible for promoting the station on and off the air and making sure that all the elements of, the personal appearances and promotions go smoothly. They schedule who's going to go out to the local mall or to the local club or to the local wherever to do that promotion, whether it's driven by sales or just by the station being there because they should. And there are a lot of different things that you do. On this station, you're going to be responsible for social media, since we aren't going to be doing any personal appearances. So you're going to be responsible for creating the social media page. And the social media page should have things on it that actually relate to the station. So I'm opening up one for KISS 96.5 here, and you'll see on there's MG Kelly and Megan Fox together. He's somebody that we play locally here in Cleveland, right? What do you think this is? The mysteriously glowing lights that kind of fits. Kim Kardashian, whatever your audience would be interested in. Dua Lipa obviously gets played on a station like this a lot. Suspected drunk driver tried to swap seats with his dog during a traffic stop. That's just a funny thing that a lot of different Facebook pages would have. You know, if you're doing Instagram here for Z1079, the local hip hop and R&B station. It's asking me to. I haven't been on Instagram in a while, so I'm not going to show you. I won't be able to show you that at this moment. But trust me, there are a lot of things to do with the artists that are on that station as well, and things that people that listen to that station would be interested in. That's what your social media is going to be doing for our station. Whatever format we do, we want to have relatable content on there. The imaging director is the person in charge of writing and producing all those things that run between the songs. I'll play you some examples of imaging in a second here. But that person works with the voice of the station, creating these audio pieces called imaging that you'll see here. It's sweeps. The sweeps are things that run between the songs, the legal IDs, the promos, and things like that. I'll be showing you examples of each of those things as we go through them. Production director sometimes helps with those types of things, in charge of producing commercials as well. And you're going to be the gatekeeper for the commercials. As everybody records them, you're going to listen to them to make sure that they are the right volume and that they are the right length and that they're good for air and that there's nothing in there that we shouldn't be airing on the station. You're going to look at that and then send them off to me, the program director for the station. I take the role of program director because it's a very tough job to throw somebody into that's never done it. But I have an assistant program director, so you'll be feeling like the program director as I work you through that whole process. So promos. The promos on the radio station are the things that promote either things on the air, like the music, the morning show, the contests, the remotes, any kind of appearances. And I'll give you an example of what a promo sounds like. Let's play this one here.
It's the man of the morning, low-key. Have a nice hot cup of news and sports with me, J-Mo, and Ramsey. And you know we only playing the hottest joints to get that body up and moving. So wake up to Hot 103.5 WOMS.
There you go. That was the morning show on OMS, WOMS, when we did that a while back. That was low-key doing that promo there. So it helps promote the show, and each show is going to be responsible for putting together something like that to promote their show. Sweeps are things that run between the songs. So here's a good example for the throwback station we did not too long ago. James did this one here.
Your hottest station with all the classics, 99.9 Throwback Nation.
So that would run between a couple of songs there. Something really simple, just like that. The legal ID is also called the station ID. Remember the call letters I mentioned a little while ago? That's your legal name. That has to be played at some point during the day, during each hour, side by side. Both of them. The call letters, not the name of the station, but the actual call letters. WGKS Cleveland. That has to be back to back, is required once every single hour by the FCC. That'll be the only time in the hour that you hear that for a lot of reasons. Some stations do actually use the call letters all the time. WMJI did it for years. WZAK does that. But most stations have some sort of a nickname, so they'll hide that in the commercials or something. But let me play you an example of the legal ID. Here is from Smokey when we were doing the Beatbox radio station. Here it is.
WBBA, Valley View, Cleveland's own Beatbox 103.5, playing all of your favorite classic hip-hop and R&B.
So he said WBBX, Valley View, because the station's located in Valley View, the actual license. And that may be different than what you want to say. You know, you may say Valley View, Cleveland. But technically, wherever the tower is where you're licensed. And that tower may be someplace different than the location of the station, actually. But the legal ID is your city of license next to your call letters once an hour. Has to happen. Okay? So the next thing is a return or rejoiner. That's also a sweep coming out of commercials or a stop set going back into music. So it'll just brings the listener right back to the music. So let me find the return here. Here's the one from The Vibe. Cash did this one, Cashmere.
It's popping again. More of the biggest hits now on WOKE. Stay woke, Cleveland.
Oh, that's a different one than I thought it was. It got mislabeled, I guess. But anyway, WOKE, that was the return from that one. Anyway, it brings you back from the music. The station voice, all those people that you heard doing the sweep, they are the voices of the station. They are the voice that is recorded, that is kind of bigger than life on the station. It's not the on-air personalities that are doing the radio shows live. It's the people that are actually doing the voice work, and that's what the imaging director does. He writes that, or she writes that, and then gives it to the station voice, and then they record that for them, and then the imaging director goes back and does all of that stuff that you hear in between. The radio personality is the opposite of the station voice. It's the person that is going to be on the air doing the talent stuff on the station, the radio shows on the air, providing the entertaining content. You know, DJ is also a radio personality. Although if he or she is a real personality, then they're more than just the person playing the music. So I prefer radio personality for them. If you're doing a bit of a talk show in the morning or longer talk segments around the music, those are also called radio personalities too. Day parts, they are all on different day times of the radio station, different times of the day. So the typically broken down morning drive is either 5 or 6 to 10 a.m. Middays, usually 10 to 3. Afternoon drive is 3 to 7 p.m. And nights is 7 to midnight. Those are normal times on weekdays, and then they switch around on the weekend. Sometimes you have longer shifts there. But those are based on what the Arbitron actual times of day for the ratings are, because that's how ratings are determined. And then they're tallied up into a full-size rating for the entire station, but it gets broken down into male and female and time of day that they happen to be listening. And sometimes radio personalities get a ratings bonus based on how good the ratings are in their time of day. So they're broken down for a reason, obviously, too, for sales. When, if your afternoon drive is doing really, really well, then if you want to advertise during that period of time, it's going to cost you, because we can see that the numbers are good during that time of day. So breaking it down into day parts is very, very important for a lot of reasons. And morning and afternoon drive are the biggest times of day for the station, because it's a captive audience in the car for a lot of people on their way back and forth to work. So the radio personalities need to be prepared when they go on the air. You have to know what you're talking about. You don't want to just go on the air and wing it. If you talk about things, then you need to be preparing yourself by looking them up and going online, and being certainly using a computer makes it so much easier than back in the day when I didn't have that. I had to look at the newspaper and magazines and stuff to find out what was going on locally or nationally. But you want to make sure and do that. So, make sure that you are prepared for whatever it is you're going to be talking about. And there are a lot of ways to prepare. I have a separate video on how to actually prepare to be on the air, no matter what it is you're doing. A talkover is a period of time when the radio personality talks over the front of the song. You've heard this all the time where, before Lizzo starts singing, you hear somebody talking about the radio station and whatever's going on there. That is important because it keeps the flow of the radio station going. Even though somebody may want to hear the whole song with no talking, the station has to promote itself, and it uses its personalities to do that. So, over the 16 seconds over the front of Lizzo, you have to talk about what's going on the air. And again, on a separate video, I show you how to do that. And for the radio stations, when we do, I think it's for voice tracking. When we do voice tracking on that station, I show you how to do talk-ups as well, very effectively. So for talk break, that's different. That's actually you talking with no musical element underneath you, or maybe you have a music bed that you're playing, but you're not short of time. You're not trying to do it within that small window before someone is singing. You actually have as much time as you need before you go into commercials to do your talk segment about whatever it is. Or if you're doing a talk segment on a morning show where you're doing content, that is where you would do that. But that's different than a talk up. A talk up is when you're doing that over the front of a song. The station format, there are a lot of formats that, it's basically different types of radio, musical presentation based on the audience that you're trying to reach. And there have been most of them have been around for, since the beginning of radio. But we'll go through them quickly. CHR is Contemporary Hit Radio. All the new hits, current hits that are on Top 40. Urban is predominantly African-American music and appeal, including R&B, hip-hop, jazz stations tend to lean more rhythmic. And so they fall under the category of urban. Even classic hip-hop and R&B falls under urban, but I put it out separately because people are starting to do this format a little bit more in certain markets now where they're playing late 80s and 90s hip-hop and upbeat R&B. I don't know why they haven't done it more in previous years because there's been classic 80s and 90s stations in other genres for a long time, but finally catching up. Adult contemporary is where you play adult hit music, and there are a number of different types of adult contemporary radio stations. It depends on the demographic, the age of the person that you're trying to reach specifically is how old you allow the music to get on your station. If it's hot AC, it tends to be very much like the top 40 contemporary hit music station, maybe with less hip hop involved or less, things that you feel your audience may not want to hear on your station. AC tends to be a little bit of that, but more gold-based, older-based music. But nowadays, you have some very hip-sounding stuff on AC. Maroon 5 and Lady Gaga melds right into whatever new stuff is out. Back in my day, it used to be old 60s and 70s stuff when I first started doing AC years ago. And again, some of that stuff does play. Star 102 plays stuff going all the way back to Journey, but they still play new stuff as well that fits. So you'll hear stuff in the 80s, 90s, and leading up to today. But AC is kind of an expansive term. Classic rock is older rock hits and album tracks. And you'll hear stuff usually from the 70s, 80s, and they're playing more 90s now. Grunge is considered classic rock these days. But there's still a lot of 70s-based stuff. You hear Skynyrd and Boston and Zeppelin and stuff like that. And then 80s, you hear John Mellencamp and all this stuff that came out in, 80s rock, Journey and stuff. Active rock. That is more current rock-based stuff. Five Finger Death Punch. Think of groups like that. Heavier, more current rock. Sometimes they mix it with older tracks, but it's more current and more aggressive rock sound. Classic hits is what oldies used to be. Oldies used to be music that was about, as old as about 25 years, going back 25 years when oldies music started. But nowadays you can't do that. You can't go back 25 years. 25 years from now, as I do this in 2023, would be 1998. It's hard to call that an oldie the same way you would call an Elvis song an oldie. You just can't do that. And it got to the point where, some of this music now has always been on the radio, so it doesn't feel old, right? Oldies, when that format came out, most of those songs from Elvis and a lot of, the 60s and Beatles and stuff like that hadn't been on the air in years. And it came out in an era in the 70s where that music was coming back. Classic hits, none of that stuff has been off the air. They've been playing the Eagles since they came out. So that's why they had to change the name. And classic hits made, people feel better about their older rock stuff. They were from used to that term with classic rock. So they felt better about it. So that's what classic hits tends to be, 70s to 90s music. Oldies is still got a place on some markets for much older music, 50s, 60s, and some early 70s. You get a lot of Elvis, you get a lot of Motown, you get a lot of early 70s pop stuff like Three Dog Night. And then you've got Christian or gospel, religious-based music programming. Christian tends to be more pop. Gospel tends to be more urban and R&B based. But they both are talking to the same person, or talking to the same entity, right? So that would be music based on that. And they tend to be family friendly as well to listen to, so you don't have to worry about some of the bad stuff that comes out of the other formats. Us heathens like to listen to that. Country, there are a few versions of country formats. Contemporary country tends to have all the current hits. Classic country has older stuff, especially from the 90s. That was a big country music era. And some of them go back to the 80s or older in certain formats. Contemporary country can play some older stuff that does work well with the current music formats. So there you go. And so that's everything you need to know about Radio Station Day. All the positions are going to be filled by the students in the class. And the personalities for the stations, we're going to decide who's going to do the morning show. There will be a midday show, an afternoon show, and an evening show. And there may be more than one personality on each of those shows, depending on how many people want to be on the air. And all of these things here as well. So get ready for a fun time. Think about what you want to do as part of Music Radio Station Day, and we'll put it all together and have an amazing time.